Hello, I am Joe Lindsay, and I'm with group number one, and we're dealing with pleasure and why it's not the greatest good. And by the time Aquinas gets dealing with pleasure, he's already dealt with that human nature has to have one final good for every human being, that we act towards an end. So everything we do is ordered towards an end. I'm taking this class so that I can gain knowledge, get a job to help people, teach people about God, and yet maybe make a living. And why do I want to make a living and teach people? Well, because those are good things, and they're all ordered towards something else. But eventually, when we get to the end of why do we do that, why do we that, why do we want to retire, why do we want to do all those things, what's the final good? What's the reason we do everything for? And there can only be one of them, and that's the greatest good. And so Aquinas goes through, well, what are the possibilities? And he's already dealt with the first ones. He's dealing with is fame the greatest, and honor, glory, and wealth. And he's ruled those out already. And he gives four main reasons that have to do, try not to get off topic, but these have a lot to do with why pleasure can't be the greatest good either. And the first reason is that those things are compatible with evil. You can have evil and with happiness. To be truly happy, you can't have any mixture of the greatest good can't have any mixture with evil with it. It can't have evil parallel along with it. So it's incompatible with evil, and wealth and fame, we know, are compatible with evil. And the second reason would be that there can't be anything desired beyond those. And if you have wealth, you could still desire health and something else. So the greatest good, when you have it, you can't desire anything else because it's going to fulfill everything. And the third reason was not only is it greatest good and happiness incompatible with evil, but it can't give rise to evil. And wealth and fame, he showed that, yes, those things can even give rise to evil. So you can't even give rise to evil in those. And the last reason he gives is that the greatest good must be something within us, inside of us. And those are all external goods. And so he rules those out. And these things have to do with pleasure later when he gets to those. So he deals with things within us like health. But health can't be the greatest good because we want to be healthy so we can accomplish goals, so that we can do other things. So health can't be the greatest. And then he gets to pleasure. And pleasure looks like it could be the one. Could this be the greatest good? Because when we're happy, it's when we experience the most pleasure. So perhaps it's internal within us that the greatest good is the joy we find in pleasure. And Aquinas just deals it right out of hand that no, it can't be, because he says pleasure is not essential to happiness. He says it's a proper accident of happiness. So what he means is that pleasure in itself is not the good that we're seeking, that we possess. It's something happens that when we attain that good, that we find pleasure in it. And so it can't be the good that we're seeking. And when we look at the pleasure we find, like in nature, pleasure we find in eating and drinking and procreation, the pleasures that are attached to those are leading towards the good of having children, of nourishing our bodies. So the pleasures that we find, the good is not in the pleasures, but the pleasures are proper accidents of those goods. And so it can't be the greatest good. But then he also looks into it further and says that pleasure is also associated with or appropriated to the sensible appetites, to the body, to the senses. And he says that the parts of the soul that are bound to the senses deal with the particular and the singular, whereas the parts of the soul that deal with the intellect and the abstract are infinitely higher than those, or he doesn't say quasi-infinite, but in relation are infinite, because with the particular you're dealing with the singular one, but when you have universal, you can have an infinite number of particulars or singulars included in that. So he's saying that the intellect is way higher, and so it can't even. He even says that the bodily pleasures aren't even a proper accident of happiness because of that they're so much lower. And so he's dealt with that. And then further, and I think it was just from the lectures, not Aquinas himself, but Dr. Newton talked about that pleasure itself. Aquinas dealt with those things early on, that evil can't be compatible with the greatest good, and pleasure is morally neutral. You can find pleasure in doing immoral things, not good things. So pleasure is compatible with evil, and that's not going to work. And the other thing is that the pleasure when you will something, when you want something, there has to be a good you're willing. And you can't just will pleasure, that you just want to want something. It's in the attainment of that good. So you can will to be holy, and you can even will to be holy, and those are good things. But there has to be something, an object that you're really trying to attain, and uh, it helps me kind of understand why Aquinas says that beatitude is in the intellect and not the will, because we can't love, we can't desire what we don't know. We have to know it first. And so when we attain the beatific vision in the intellect, then we can love it. But there has to be primacy to that. And I'm supposed to stay around 5 minutes, but when I was originally writing this, I'm an Oregon State grad, and I live in Oregon, and Oregon State won the World Series. And I was thinking of pleasure, and that intense pleasure that you find. The first game, they lost, and I was miserable watching the game. But the second game, it's ninth inning, 2 outs, 2 strikes, down a run, 1 strike away from losing, and then they come back and they win it. And the intense pleasure that comes from that. And then they go on to win the World Series. But if I just willed to will it, it's the championship, the game. It's not the desire, or else I would have been just as happy when they were losing, when they were behind. But when they come back and do it, it's the attainment of that goal that I think that gives rise to that intense pleasure. And even when they won the third game and won the championship, since it was easy, they won like 5-0. There wasn't that intense pleasure that there was in that come from behind. And it made me think of the beatific vision, the pleasure that I wonder if I attain the beatific vision, it's not going to be a slam dunk. It will be the ninth inning, 2 outs, 2 strikes with a divine intervention miracle where the ball drops between 3 Arkansas guys that should have ended the game. And all the things that come in, because that greatest good that we attain, all of the desires that we have, including the weird desire for winning in sports, would be completed. And so anyway, off topic again, but Aquinas, pleasure can't be it, because it's the attainment of that goal, and it's the greatest good that we can't desire anything else. And I've rambled, but thank you, and thanks for the help from Group 1 in Week 8.